In this episode, I interview the DeVault team, including lead developer Proteus, as well as project manager and sort of general face of the project, Decentralized. You know him, you love him, you want to see more of him, I know. I won't waste too much time here telling you about it. This is the full interview, pretty much unedited, start to finish, so you can get a sense, like I did, for who these guys are, what they're all about, what some of their background is, what they're doing right now with DeVault as a cryptocurrency project, and what their roadmap items and what some of the current ideation items are that they're mulling over and considering including in the project and the code in the future. Oh, before I let you go, be sure to hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when new media comes out. I now have Nerd Girl, Nicole Grinstead, doing 2 shows with me every single week on Monday and Saturday. Check out our shows and be sure that you have notifications turned on. You're not going to regret it. So, the record has begun. Everything you say can and will be used against you in the public court of opinion. The cryptosphere, right? They'll hang on to the receipt till the end of time. So no pressure.
They're gonna put it on a blockchain.
Yeah, right. Somebody somewhere, right? I mean, wasn't there that Twitter blockchain bot, right? Where it was like they just all they did was just.
I think it's a Bitcoin. Yeah, I think it's an old Bitcoin bot. I think it might be on SV now or something. But yeah, you basically just did a command, then it screenshotted a snapshot of what the person said. But I don't know if that was actually around for too long.
Okay.
That's what they should do with the crypto deleted bot. They should just make it a register on the blockchain. But yeah, that's a different subject.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I apologize, guys. I will.
Oh no, you're good.
To your point, I won't often talk about other people's blockchain projects when I'm interviewing one project. Try to let you, give you the floor, talk a little more about what you guys are doing that's unique, and then keep our conversation more focused on that. But occasionally, comparisons do help draw out some useful conversation, and as you know, contrast to like, hey, what are they doing that you guys took advantage of the fact that they weren't, were sleeping, so. You saw an opportunity and you built something where other people weren't building. So outside of that, I'll try to keep.
Yeah, I think a project like that comes to with like just to show the scale, and what you can do with stuff. Just like if you can snapshot pieces of the internet on a blockchain, it should be scalable, right?
Yeah, you'd think. IPFS,
I mean, that's a lot of information to try to.
Yeah, IPFS definitely has a lot of advantages.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, that said. Ravencoin, they were smart enough to just say like, hey, we'll let you assign a hash into our tokens, and whether you can retrieve that hash or not, whether it's being seeded at all, like who cares? Just timestamp.
Yeah. So the same thing can be done on other projects as well. And the token protocol that we're implementing, which is modeled after the SLP from BCH, it also has data points where you could enter an IFP or a link for that, and they're actually working on some of that as well. On BCH, so it's interesting. I've been following some of that.
Nice. My questions just closed in my note-taking app, and it brought me over to notes on making a lateral career move into DevOps engineering. You can tell where my head's been at, right? With a lot of work slowing down. It's like
not a bad time to think about it,
bro. Level up, like now.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Quickly for the record, guys, thank you so much for we'll kind of start the show with a bit of an informal slate. Part of this is going to go to a podcast. I think most of it we're going to go visual because you guys are on camera, so thank you. That helps, right? Faces, names, FaceTime with the community, people who don't know you. I think most of my community won't know you initially because my channel started primarily talking to GPU miners, and so you'll be new. But a lot of GPU miners who've capitulated have said well, I need to be thinking about ASICs. And they've been buying from capitulated ASIC miners over the last year. I know we've had some early conversations about why this might be a good time for us to be chatting about that. But they might not know you, is what I'm saying, or your project yet. So from the beginning, who are you guys, and what have you been involved in the past?
I would say I'll go first real quick, just because I'll be the longest if I don't. My name is Jake, I guess, for the record. I go by Decentralized Online. I've been in crypto since I wouldn't say late 2011-ish. It's kind of a blur at this point, right? But yeah, for the most part, we're all involved in a project called DeVault. I do mostly marketing and business related things. These guys do most of the coding, if not all of the coding. And then we have a community of people that we try to support in a certain way in terms of progressive crypto for everybody type mindset, not as much as like a schemy profitability for 5 people type system that a lot of the things we've seen these days have become. So that's just kind of our ethos from the get-go, is just how do we provide a service and a blockchain and a technology that everyone can use and be happy with. I think that comes down to starting with a few key points. So yeah, I think that's kind of what we do. That's what I do. So
Awesome.
let's go.
So decentralized Jake in the game since about late 2011, but who's counting? Okay. All right.
Yeah. That's weird flex. Yeah, I'm Proteus. I've been involved in crypto since 2013. I started with mining as well. I actually got an ASIC originally. My now wife's father actually started mining Bitcoin, so I originally got one more just to have something to talk to him about, and I ROI'd in like a week and a half on
Dude.
it, and got really interested. And as I dive deeper, I mean, everyone thinks they understand crypto, but the deeper you dive, it's like, okay, I was wrong about that. But it just really started to blow my mind. So I became more and more involved. I built up a GPU farm as well, and so I was mining both ASIC and GPU algos. And then around 2015, I started to get more involved with Darkcoin, which became Dash. That's where I met Decentralized, and many of the people in our project also originated from that community. And switched over to running masternodes. I started selling my equipment and ran masternodes for a while. But 2016 is really when I started to get involved with development, helping various projects like Nubits, some stuff for Dash, and then Decentralized contacted me about a project he started to work on and helped found, which was Smart Cash. And I joined them as tech, eventually came on as a core developer. And, that's kind of where we started working a lot more together, Decentralized and I. And then Spock and him talked about starting the project DeVault. I mean, honestly, this project was in the works for well over a year before we really started to push stuff out, like before our Genesis block. I mean, for Decentralized, it's probably going on for longer than that. But that's where I came from, and been working with these guys, and best team I've worked with yet by far.
Proteus, that's awesome, man. I think so. Guys, pivot. We're just going to talk about how you ROI'd in a week and a half, because, bro, a week and a half ROI on any mining gear that's the dream.
Yeah, it was great. So it was a 10.7 gigahertz blade. So I actually bought it on Amazon. So I bought it with USD. The guy, I think the seller was like Jones something. He was a big seller. He sold Avalons as well when they first came out. So I spent $200 on it, and then crypto just started taking off there in 2013. We went from, I also bought a little bit at the same time. I think I bought some at like 180. And then we went to like 500, like that. And the difficulty at that time didn't catch up as fast. I mean, we were still, the community was so small. So, and I mean, ASICs were still fairly new. The Avalon probably came out, 2012, and this was mid 2013. And we're still talking gigahashes on an ASIC, not, big time. So yeah, no, that was great. I was lucky timing, by far, definitely lucky timing. Shortly after that, you couldn't find miners on Amazon or eBay or anything like that. And that's when I started, Bitmain popped up, and the first one, the S1 came out, and I ordered from there. I remember just shitting my pants because I just gave a Chinese company I never heard of over $5,000 in Bitcoin. And bro, I kid you not, we got it in 2 days. In 2 days from China to Florida.
Wow.
In America. I was like, dude, Amazon didn't even do 2 day at that time. Amazon wasn't even up to that speed yet. Don't ask me how. 2 days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talking about like e-commerce and pain points, you can't even like ingress. You can't even get products into Florida domestically in 2 days anymore because of what they've done with e-commerce.
It's true. So yeah, that was my experience. Obviously, a good time to join in. It was easy to get hooked. Just it was easy street at first for sure. Okay. It was tougher times 2014 and 15. Sure.
I mean, it's storied, man. I mean, this is part of the history now. It's like it's all written, right? The future is what everybody's trying to guess now, but so I'm super curious now. I mean, again, if we can pivot just a little longer here, stay on that tangent just a little longer. You mentioned your cost to acquire that blade server was $200 and Bitcoin was 180 at the time. At that point, when you ROI'd in a week and a half, but you also picked up some Bitcoin at 180, what were you thinking at that time where you were like, wow, well, maybe I should have just gone more into coin?
Oh, I did. I mean, I definitely overbought at the top. After that, I started buying with everything I could. I bought some like $48 Litecoin, and then for sure thought Litecoin would never touch $48 after that again. I mean, it went down to like $2. I remember, anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, so I definitely did FOMO in at that point, but it's I fell in love and I stuck with it, and obviously it's been beneficial since then.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. And thank you for the story time there. It's like,
Yeah,
Okay,
no
yeah.
problem.
so for me, and I apologize for jumping in, but my channel started very, very late. And well, I'll tell you a little more about my background in a minute. But I didn't start in 2011. It's that should be clear if you look into
Yeah.
my
Hey,
content.
I was a broke college student. It didn't really help much.
Yeah, I was a broke grad. I mean, the degree didn't help much either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But-
same here.
But who do we have left?
Spock.
Yeah, hi. So, first bought Bitcoin 2014 and basically sat on it for a couple of years. I think I bought a 600 and it didn't go back up to that for at least a couple of years. So then early 2016, I saw stuff happening like Ethereum was hitting a new high and stuff like that. So I got interested again. I bought some Dash, some Monero. And then I started actually, because I'm a code developer, I started getting interested in how it all worked and started working on Dash. I done basically a iPhone wallet for Dash and got it up on the store. And at that point, there's a bit of a rift in the Dash community. And I was like, because I wasn't part of core, someone in the community in Dash immediately say, "Oh, that's a scam wallet." So I got very discouraged, and kind of just stopped doing that, and just kind of was looking around for other coins of interest. And after a while, I kind of fell on Pivx, which was a Dash clone, and so I started just kind of working on that, and at that time they're actually starting to rebrand, so it was darknet at that point. And after just doing a little bit, they asked if I wanted to be a core dev, and they basically didn't even have a core dev at that point. So I started
Wow.
working on that. So basically, all 2017, I worked on that on Pivx, and it basically mooned from less than a cent up to I don't know, at that point, the end of that year, probably $8 or $10 or something,
Oh,
or maybe
nice.
$3 anyway. So, and then early 2018, there was kind of a lot of change in direction. There was, I mean, the kind of lead developer, well, not really a developer, but who really wanted to do a DEX and various other things, and which was kind of going against what we were trying to do. So I decided to quit. So most of 2018, I just kind of done my own thing. Also, was just looking around. I chatted to Decentralized at that point, and he was working on getting his thing up, but we it didn't sound like something I was interested in, so I didn't pursue it anymore. And eventually, towards the end of the year, we had kept in touch. We chatted again. And, we just kind of decided decided that I'd try to help out on that. So basically, early 2018, early 2019, I started working on DeVault. So that's kind of history.
Got it. That's very cool. So I've spoken to both Ruben Yap and to Brian Dorian recently. So I know a little bit of the. It's crazy how the farther back you go with some of these projects like Dash, like Darkcoin, and then PivX, and then Zcoin, that was a big champion of the zero coin protocol that then PivX picked up. It's crazy how small the world is, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Smart Cash was originally a Zcoin fork as well. So.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, okay, so we've talked about the history long enough, I think. Just so you guys are aware, my background in cryptocurrency, I had a couple of brothers that built a multi-pool early on when that was still kind of a unique thing to do, when it was actually hard, right? Like there wasn't boilerplate repos for you to just fork on GitHub. And so like, sweet, we're going to pop up a multi-pool. So they did a lot of hard work and tracking people's bounties and shares and stuff. And they were one of the earliest pools to really capitalize on Blackcoin. That was their big claim to fame. Before it, of course, went proof of stake. So that was kind of a big deal for them. And the whole time they were like, hey, bro, you need to really pay attention to what we're doing. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. I mean, it seems like you guys are hobby level right now. Nothing's really come of this. And you're not seeing the returns in terms of like basically exiting your position from some of these coins you're holding. It seems nice, but really it does seem like hobby level stuff you're doing. And I don't know, my first exposure, like serious exposure to understanding a little bit about the blockchain ecosystem at that time was about 2013, 2014. I was hearing about Ethereum being announced and they were excited about it, but I just slept on it. I did. I really slept on what they were trying to tell me. They were really like waving their arms like, hey, get involved. And it took me clear until 2017 to really take action. So I wear that as my badge of shame. But I'm not going to pretend to be one of those guys like, yeah, I was on Bitcoin Talk. I have some exchanges with Satoshi personally.
I still talk to him. No one else does.
Yeah. I'm tired of that crap, especially in the mining scene. You'll hear some people who say like, yeah, I was mining back in 2010. I mined full blocks myself on GPUs. I solo mined. Sure you did. Sign a message or tell us your Bitcoin Talk handle. Any of these things will suffice. Like, we're not all dummies, So I can't pretend. I got.
There's too many people nowadays. You don't know who to believe.
Yeah, so that's why I come out with it, right? It's like I slept. Yeah. I really did. I slept till 2017, and but it was undeniable, right? What it was doing in the market in terms of popular adoption on some levels. But again, part of the history had been written. Like there were a lot of cryptos that went mainstream and were being accepted in a lot of e-tailers and e-commerce, and then it all pulled back, and so it's a mixed bag, right?
Yeah. I feel you there, man. You don't gotta tell me that.
So
it's been a fun ride though, for sure, right? You've learned a lot and you're having a blast and you don't know what else you want to do with your life right now. So I think, we're on the right track.
Yeah, but I love talking to teams like you guys because you've got a little bit more history in depth because, it's also fascinating, right? From a personal perspective, it's like, what possesses a person after it's like dudes that become professional MMA fighters or professional boxers. Yeah. It's like, you're going to get punched in the face. Why the hell did you come back? You guys are still here. You're just stepping back in the ring. What has gripped you to do this?
On a personal level, I don't see anybody else doing it really well to the point where you feel like, why not give it a shot, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's the gist of it. Like, there's not a project out there that you can just stare at it and be like, wow, we can't do better than that. So yeah, and I think the only way to to me, Bitcoin is not necessarily one single thing. Bitcoin is like the array of projects available, and then eventually we might get to a single type of Bitcoin system if Bitcoin bakes in all these proven technologies over the years. But if that doesn't happen, who knows what it'll look like, right? So you might as well do your part to help develop the features you think are needed in the industry. I mean, just to start off with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too. I mean, when I first got involved with Dash and stuff, 2016, it didn't occur to me like, oh, I should just do my own coin. I thought like, oh, it'd be too hard or whatever. And but in retrospect, there wasn't really a lot of good projects, and there's still the vast majority are not very good from a tech point or dev point of view. So even though at first it seemed like it would be stupid to do your own, as time went on, it became more apparent that it's actually, there's no reason not to at this point. So, I mean, we're in a tough situation trying to actually build a community now and market cap given the bear market. But apart from that, I think we can do as good a job as any other coin.
Nice. So, Spock, I hope you'll forgive me. I'm going to be picking on you the entire time because you've got such a clear West End accent or Irish. I can't quite tell, but
yeah, Irish.
So, yeah, I'm going to be like, oh, gosh darn it, where is he? Monkey brain over here, like, throwing crap at the wall. Okay, what sticks? Is it West End or Irish? Thank you for confirming. But and I apologize. I'm sure I've offended you by saying you sound like a West Ender as opposed to an Irishman.
No, it's fine.
But
that's great.
Cool. So yeah, guys, let's talk a little about some of the project fundamentals for anybody that doesn't really know about DeVault. As far as these might not be some of the metrics that you guys are shooting for, but I ask a lot of different projects these same questions to help listeners to the podcast get a bit of an apples to apples comparison. To some people, these numbers matter. To people right now who are in the know, who are developing, they're like, yeah, I mean, sure, we have to list it. It's a metric, but we don't care. So things like TPS. Do you guys foresee a need for a second layer solution? What's your throughput right now? Do you see this being a problem that needs to be solved in the foreseeable future?
Well, first off, we forked from Bitcoin Cash, and we've kept up mostly with their updates. Currently, our default max block size is 32 megabytes. So we've had a high transaction throughput since the beginning. I mean, there was days that we were doing 2 to 3 times as much data as Bitcoin was. Not by choice. There was someone spamming our network. It was, somewhat of an attack, but regardless, it was a great way to display the capabilities of our network, right? So, and I don't see that. I mean, right now we don't have much demand for the higher throughput, but I see absolutely no reason to use another layer. Blockchain works. I mean, Lightning, Liquid. There's no need for it because we've proven that blockchain can scale, and it can scale in an economic way. I mean, you can get 10 terabyte hard drives for dirt cheap right now, under $200. It's absolute madness to think that we need to build some type of overcomplicated second layer solution to something that already solves a problem. I mean, I tell people it's like if instead of expanding the lanes and roads, we just made like some weird trolley thing where you like park your car and then it goes over top the road. Like that would just be stupid. Just expand the lanes and drive. It works. That's my opinion, though.
Sure.
And we have the shorter block size, block times, which means we can go faster in BCH too.
Absolutely, 5 times as much.
Okay, got it. So then right now, what is your block time is 2 minutes then?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. The emission curve, pardon my ignorance, but is it capped? Will it be an infinite emission? And if it is capped, what's the total? And when will the world see the very last DeVault coin emitted? Air quotes last.
I mean, Spock coded it, but I'll throw a quick answer out there. He can correct me if I get it wrong. But I think around 700 years technically is the timeline. But the thing is you only have a 2 billion coin max soft cap right now. There's not technically a cap, so soft cap we'll call it. But it will not get past like 2 billion and 1 million coins, right? It'll just kind of never really happen. So 2 billion is the soft cap, but there is a need for some form of inflation, I think, permanently to keep the A miners happy and B just money churning in that's dying out because money will be getting locked over the time. But right now we have 2 billion, and it actually used to be 5 billion when we started out the project. We had a community-wide vote where everybody agreed to basically 60% drop in the coin's max cap. So we did that. Right now we have about 250 million coins circulating and 207 million out in like public. So you have like 40 million in budgets that aren't counted by CoinMarketCap and so on. And then I think that's growing at a rate of, I want to say 250,000 a day right now off the top of my head. Maybe 300, 400,000 somewhere in there. But it was there you go. There's a number, 300,000 a day. So that's either miners auto dumping into the market and or cold rewards being given directly to users.
And that's dropping pretty fast. So the inflation model that we did, and this was, came from Spock. He was really from, wanted to bring this in. It's a great feature. It's called, or we've dubbed it Sharkflation because it kind of has a fin in the way that it distributes. So at first the block reward increased every so often. So it was a steady increase until it peaked at 750 DVT per block. And now we're down to, I think, like 435 per block. And the way that it comes out to is, so it peaked after 6 months. It's going to take 6 months to half from there. So we'll get down to 375. And then after that, it'll take a year to half from there. And then after that, it'll take 2 years to half from there. So it continuously halves in a twice as long span until you get down to 1 DVT per block, which is, almost minuscule inflation. It's almost not there, but it is. So while there's no hard cap, the inflation slows down dramatically over time.
Very, very cool. So when we do finally see that 1 D per block reward being issued, what's the atomic unit of D, and how many decimals is that from 1?
So we have a 3 decimal precision. So it's, and obviously that can be expanded. That's there now because there's really no need. And when your coin isn't worth a ton of value, you end up with a bunch of dust problems, right? We even started to see it with the decimal precision when someone was attempting to inconvenience the network, I should say. But
they were a friendly
so,
pen tester. I'm sure it was a white hat.
Yeah, oh yeah. So obviously that could be expanded over time. I imagine if we were getting to where it was 1 DVT per block, that we would have expanded the decimal precision by then. But who knows?
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. There are a couple projects, not naming names, a couple projects that have stuck with sort of typical conventions of the most popular currencies from around the world, and their precision is 2 decimals. And
I think it's just a lack of understanding, honestly, because we had a big talk about this, and there was like we were going to go with the original setup that Bitcoin has, obviously, but then we had like a discussion about how many coins we're going to have and precision and stuff. So it just seemed obvious to take away some of those digits because nobody really needs 1,000th of a penny. You know what I mean? Like it's not useful.
yeah, well, I mean, gosh, gas stations do. They account that way.
The gumball machine.
It's pretty nuts, man. What people in the oil and gas industry do with current in ways that are like, wait, is that even legal? Like how do you account
negative
that way?
$37 a
Yeah.
barrel?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to hinder microtransactions at any point. So if our value got to the point where, in order to do that fraction of a penny, thousandth fraction of a penny, you needed more precision, that's when we would put it up. And remember, we have community consensus. It's all done by governance. So if we wanted to expand the decimal precision, we would do a network-wide vote, and coin holders would then vote on that. And as long as they passed it, then we would go forward with it.
That makes perfect sense, guys. So yeah, again, like not to dwell on details too much. Satoshi in the white paper, or not in the white paper, but in some of the emails, right? Like I try to read some of what Satoshi wrote, because it's like, dude, it's all written, right? Like this is a fixed canon. Anybody can read it in a day and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking about expanding the decimal on Bitcoin proper, or BTC rather. We think maybe he was talking about BSV.
We actually have 8 decimal precision. We have down to Satoshi on the blockchain, but all the clients are built in so that it only uses the top 3. So we can easily expand down to 8 without. It would still require some kind of hard fork probably, but it's not a huge burden probably to add more precision down to 8 if we need to.
Sure. Well, I mean, hey, right now the hammer that I'm trying to learn is DevOps, so every problem looks like a DevOps nail to me, and I'm just thinking orchestration layers in the future. If you're talking about like, hey, storage is cheap now, imagine it in the future. I can only imagine hard forks are going to get easier and easier to handle. So makes sense, guys. That makes total sense. So moving on, let's just talk about the basic pain, right? Like, what was the problem you guys were trying to solve? I like talking to projects, and I think more people should talk to open source projects in general as though they're startups. So go to YC, and they're going to talk to you in plain English, right? Like, whose itch are you trying to scratch right now? Like, what happened? Is there an anecdote? Did one of you say like, ah, man, it's too much. Got to fix this. Like, what's the story there?
I mean, to be honest, I guess I'll take that one. So, because I came to these guys and asked for help initially, but like I said, I've always been around. I've been a user of a lot of different coins. I grew up not necessarily wealthy in America, but not necessarily super poor in America. So I kind of see a lot of the different sides of the fence. And I would say that to me, the reason DeVault is important and the reason that we don't just go invest into DGB or some other altcoin that's like similar community mindset or something like that, if you wanted to throw that out there, I would say is because, again, nobody's done it well enough to impress me, or I would say these guys, to the point where we want to invest our time into helping build that community. Usually when you're into a community that's already been sort of built over the years, there's this hierarchy of like who's important and who's not important and stuff. And so I think one of the things we wanted to do is try to tear that down. So community focused everything, community wide shareholder type voting systems, I think gives back the power to those users as opposed to sort of alienating people that weren't early. I also think for me, it's important to, know that we're doing something for the right reasons and helping the people, as opposed to sort of trying to build a long-term cash out scheme, which is what a lot of altcoin projects have technically become. And all those 2017 charts that you saw go way, way high and then dump way, way, way low, I'm assuming there's a couple people with some very nice houses out there, and good for you, capitalism's working in your favor. But there was a lot of people that lost on that deal. So I think for us, the best thing to do was design a product, and it is a product that people want to own because it helps them to have a better life. And I think DeVault is, in my opinion, a digital version of what you want from a bank account, in the sense that I want to put value somewhere and I want value to be added to it without lots of effort. That's what investment is. So to me, that was kind of what we wanted to build initially. I know it's expanded from that to a little bit of a wider purview, and that's because we have a lot more talented people than myself who can't really code that well involved now. And so I think now we're trying to work on a little bit more privacy, a little bit more of those other features that we think would sort of empower those users. But at the end of the day, the goal is to make the users, happy with what they're holding, with what they're using, being able to be a digital currency and open source money. And at the end of the day, an open source banking system, I think an open source like value platform for people. And if you want to go any deeper than that, we could. But I think that's the simplest way to say like what I want out of this project.
Got it. So if I'm picking up what you're throwing down, I think I can use this term. You probably can't because it's politically charged, but you wanted to solve the Charlie Lee problem, basically. Okay,
Yeah, kind of.
I can say that. Yeah, it's not politically correct, but I can say
Like,
you want
just to prove what I'm saying, we all get paid a few $100s a month to work on this. You know what I mean? Most projects are trying to cash out 10, 15 figures type thing. And it's just like, oh, you guys do your thing, but don't expect your project to be around in 2 or 3 years when all of your community is bankrupt and it's your fault. Like you keep asking them to put money, and then you keep cashing out more money than they're putting. And what do you think is going to happen to those people?
Got it. So you want decision making to be closely aligned with stakeholder status.
Yes.
That's awesome.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And so, guys, kudos for having that mindset. And clearly, it permeates everything you're doing because that was part of the opening vision of the project. Let me ask, as far as privacy, we'll come back around to that, and we will do a little bit of a deep dive. But the heads up, we're going to talk about privacy at the protocol level, and we'll talk about privacy at the client level, right? Because there's so many ways to approach it. And then just like personal OPSEC, and then we'll get into some personal questions about that. Right, InfoSec and OPSEC. There are things that people do, I think, that are far more damning than what any protocol offers. And you guys this. You've been around long enough.
Yep.
You've seen it. You've seen it all. So
yeah.
But let's talk a little more about the team right now, or the unique tech advantage. If you can talk about it from a technical perspective, what was like the killer feature you guys launched with? What did you hang as your banner when you were in a room full of nerds and you said this makes us different and or better?
I have my answer, but I just spoke enough, so I'll just hold off. Let these guys go.
I would think that'd be cold awards. Did you want to take that, Spock, or did you want me to jump in?
You go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, one of the big advantages is we have cold rewards, which I think all of us were really burnt out on the cash grab that masternodes became. I mean, I was an early masternode owner with Dash because I really believed in the service that was being provided, and obviously it was profitable as well. But it just became ridiculous where any masternode coin was pretty much just a complete cash grab, and they would disappear and people would lose ridiculous amounts of money, and it almost became kind of like a thing. And also, I mean, 95% of these masternode coins the masternodes aren't providing any type of service whatsoever. They're just extra nodes on the network that happen to get part of the block reward. So we solved that by using a system that rewards holders. If basically it's almost like staking, but you're participating in creation of the block, because we still have that proof of work security and block creation. So it's a passive income strategy. And so as long as you don't spend your coins and they're over the minimum amount, you'll receive a payout every month. In the first year, that came out to 15% per year, and that's going to lower here in a month or so to 13% per year. So you get a little over 1% every month for your return without doing anything. You don't have to have your node kept online. You don't need a VPS. You could use a mobile wallet that doesn't even have the full blockchain or anything like that. So
you
that
don't
was
even have
one
to
of our
reveal an
stronger
IP address
features.
then for where you're staking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, you could do it on a paper wallet. So
That was
That's
the
awesome.
goal. I think when we talked about this, I think one of the design goals was how do we make it happen so that when we go to Africa, it doesn't matter. There's no design needed. There's no extra stuff needed. Mobile phone, paper wallet, it should work either way.
Brilliant. Guys, that's awesome. Okay, so
I think
then
another pretty important was the one coin per vote
Yeah.
Yep.
idea, which it's not built into the blockchain as yet, but we have a website that's set up to look at signatures to enable that. And that's another thing a lot of Mastodon coins tried to do or wanted to do, but it ended up then the voting was really restricted to the masternode holders at the expense of everyone else. So that was another kind of thing that we wanted to prove on in terms of like a Dash or Pivx or whatever.
got it. Okay, awesome.
And I think that actually goes hand in hand, just to go full circle with what you guys talked about a little earlier, the inflation mechanism. So the Shark rewards system, why it went up and then down, well, the reason we did that is we wanted to provide a year-long period, or as long as we could, of
Oops, did I lose everyone?
It's a really
No, I'm still here.
No, we lost decentralized.
Okay.
It's a really entertaining
Okay.
thumbnail to freeze on, though.
Yeah.
It looks like a big fish story, doesn't it? It's like, you don't understand. The value of our coin is this much.
That's the thumbnail.
To the moon. Lambos. I apologize. Someone's going to like chop that one section of the interview and make an EDM remix.
Yeah.
Oh, man, bummer. Okay, hopefully we get him back in just a second here. Let me just...
I think what he was going to go into, I mean, I may be wrong, but I think what he was going to go into is there's actually, as we get closer towards the second year, there will come a point where cold rewards will outpace the regular block reward inflation. So with what our expected participation rate of around 75 to 80%, it was which we've seen thus far, maybe a little bit less, but at that point, the percentage of coins that are created via cold rewards will exceed the base reward. So it does kind of change the mechanics there.
Got it. Okay, that's awesome. So, I mean, it seems like then this has been a driving vision then and mission for the project, is making sure that stakeholders are valued, rather that stakeholder status is achievable. It's actually approachable
Absolutely.
by anyone in the world, and that status is valued above just being able to quickly swoop in and buy up available liquidity somewhere.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. Definitely appreciate that. So as far as the team, we've got the three of you on the call right now. We've got Proteus and Spock and Decentralized when he comes back in. So we've got you three. Is there anybody else on the team that makes this project unique?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a great community, and our team is really small right now for like people that are on the DAOs currently. But we do a lot with the little that we have. We do have a community member that goes by Pest. He just completed creating the Default Atm, which is open source, do-it-yourself coin ATM. So you could set it up anywhere, and it takes coins from America, Mexico, anywhere, and then you can use your mobile wallet to buy DeVault, which is a really cool project. And it's been interesting to see that come together. I think there's some demo videos of that we can send you as well. You can include if you'd like.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll have that in the links for the show notes later on. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. ATMs are awesome, man. And it seems like there's so many really good projects where it's like it's open source. You can fork it. You can whatever. You can either 3D print a housing for it, or you can laser cut like an acrylic housing for it. It doesn't have to be cost prohibitive.
Absolutely.
That's cool, man.
Yep.
So as far as collabs, are there any other projects that you guys, I think this is one of the one metric of a healthy open source culture. It's not true of every FOSS project out there, but it is true of a lot of them, that there's a bit of give and take, and there's a bit of goodwill built up between projects. Say, for example, like Debian and Ubuntu, or say like
Absolutely.
some other derivative desktop OSs that are based on Ubuntu. There's really solid goodwill between those projects, even though some of these other projects might not help Canonical earn any money. They still are very open and giving. And I think that's a really good pattern for crypto. I'd love to see it in the crypto communities. Do you guys have success stories where you've collabed and helped other projects and they've helped you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us have worked with other projects. I know Spock, for instance, we're making the big transition right now, or considering the big transition to using BLS signatures for our blockchain, and that's where the privacy comes in as well. But for example, I was doing some work for another project and happened to notice, because Spock didn't even tell me, but he did some work for the Chia BLS package, which is used by Dash and some other projects as well. So I mean, I guess that would be a good example of at least him providing, some his skills for the greater community and not just ourselves.
Nice. Well, I mean, that
Yeah,
counts, man. Anybody from the team doing it is represents the team, right?
Absolutely.
I
yeah,
apologize.
and minimal interaction with some BCH stuff too, in terms of their Electron Cash wallet. So it's a little difficult sometimes to contribute to the bigger projects, but if there's a small amount we can do occasionally, we will.
Sure. It begs the question, though. Are you guys like a known project, or are you individually known by maintainers or developers over at BCH? I know Roger Veer, for example, he'll sometimes invest in derivative and fork projects.
Yeah, well, I think Decentralized has spoken with Roger once or twice. I'm sure he's heard, Decentralized talking about the project. But yeah, I mean, we do interact with Electron Cash devs. I know Spock submitted some stuff. I think I did one or two as well. And then also for like the BCH RPC Explorer, submitted some stuff there, and they do seem to know us and very friendly. When we first started working on DeVault and started forking, different Bitcoin Cash projects, including Electron Cash, we kind of saw them talking about us in Telegram and like sharing links and stuff, and it was cool because there was nothing bad. They were paying attention to. We got base 58 and did all Beck 32 addresses, which is something they've been talking about and wanting to do. And honestly, I think they're going to be pretty interested and curious when they hear about the BLS project that we're doing, because BCH, they very much talked about adopting BLS as well. There was a talk between Schnorrs and BLS. And I think the general consensus was that there's a lot of greater benefit in BLS, but I think Schnorrs felt more achievable at the time. So it's for us to be able to put that work out there, really, Spock, he's really spearheaded all of that. I've just helped him test it. But I think that might draw some attention from some of their devs, and I hope it does.
Got it. Okay, cool, guys. Well, let's talk more about a bit about proof of work, and then let's talk. Oh, I'm trying to figure out what mode keep this thing in. Let's talk a bit about proof of work, and let's talk. It's odd. So Jitsi is kind of this is an adjustment for me from Zoom, but I love it because it's open source. You can host it yourself. So
Right.
even when you don't have like security outside of transit, right? So encryption outside of transit, you can control all the other points of potential interaction. Interference. So it's quickly becoming my favorite alternative. But let's talk a bit about proof of work, and let's jump into privacy, guys. Really quickly, today, what percentage of block reward goes to mining?
I think it's 45%.
It's 55%.
55,
right?
sorry. Yeah.
55. Yeah.
Got it. And then the breakdown of other block rewards. How does that pan out?
Actually, we have a call that gives us the information from. Let me pull it up real quick.
Cool. Thank you. And pardon my ignorance. I'm just
you're
asking
fine.
so podcast listeners can hear.
Yeah, so it should be 15% for community funds, which are things people can vote on, send a proposal. 10% for core dev and web dev, I think, and then 10% for marketing. And I'm not getting all the categories right, actually, or the actual names of what we call them, but that's kind of basically it.
Yeah. So
Right,
there's.
Curtis?
Yep, there's the 3 DAOs that take 10% each, and then or are located 10% each, and then 15% that goes towards the greater community budget, and then cold rewards get added on into that. So it makes it a little bit of a not a clean split, but it comes out. So like currently, right now, of all of our coins that are distributed, 53.3% are from mining, 42.4% is from budget, and then 4.2% come from cold rewards. So that cold rewards percentage will probably increase a little bit over time, but for the bulk majority, it's about 52 to 55% that goes to mining reward.
Got it. Okay, I'm guessing I am just going to go ahead and I'm going to. Boop. Yeah, we're gonna boot we're gonna boot decentralized frozen frame for now, and hopefully he can go back in. I messaged him on Twitter, so hopefully he'll be able to make it back in just a second here.
Yeah,
But
he said his router died.
oh my gosh,
So yeah, he's restarting. So
need to get him on
that was
something
5
more
minutes ago.
robust. You guys need to get him walk through on OpenWRT or something that'll let him use a
absolutely.
VPN router side. So let's talk then. That's awesome. So it sounds like then the majority of the block reward today goes to proof of work mining. Are there any other consensus mechanisms used? Because right now you're doing cold staking, but that's calculated outside of, say, like an actual proof of stake protocol. Is that correct?
Right. It's
Right.
so it's pure SHA-256 mining. That's the consensus.
Got it. Okay. And as far as that goes, how's that worked out? Have you noticed that has been a vulnerability at all? Have you seen any people trying to futz with the network, like buying hash nukes from NiceHash or something?
We haven't. Go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
Yeah, we haven't had any kind of double spend attacks or anything. And I think the SHA-256 is like a commodity, so it's in a way, we debated GPU versus ASIC, and I noticed a lot of the GPU miners, they pick something and then 6 months later they have to change it, and then they change it again, and it ends up some one person knows how to do an FPGA for it or something, and gets a lion's share of the coins and dumps them. So that's not really, doesn't happen with SHA-256 as far as we're seeing. I mean, we're not big enough to be competing with the Bitcoins and so on. So it's just a lot of miners that, individually have ASIC equipment that are doing it. So for us, I think it's worked out great so far. We, we have considered moving to something else, but we don't have any urgent need to. Maybe Proteus can comment some more on that.
Got it. I mean, hey, if it ain't broke today, then no need to fix it. Do you guys have any kind of preventive, we'll say prophylactic measures for 51% attacks? Because
Yeah. So we do have a 30 block reorg protection. So that's on and by default on all nodes. And some miners themselves can set that shorter or longer if they want to, but by default it's going to be 30 blocks. And early on we did have some hash spikes and stuff, but mostly that was just competition. It was just I think people misunderstood our algorithm. Because there are certain algorithms you can game. It's the difficulty is low right now, so just put up a bunch of hash power, and it'll take a little bit for the difficulty to catch up. But we use the LWMA algorithm, so it runs out off a moving average. So if you throw on a bunch of hash, the difficulty is going to go up very quickly. It's quite responsive. So because of that, we've had a very stable proof of work network for our size. Because with our market cap, it should be extremely easy to either game our difficulty or even worse, 51% attack for some type of deep reorg or something like that. But because of that LWMA, I think it's helped prevent that.
Okay, awesome. So if somebody did want to attack, they better be prepared to pony up for more than an hour of hash rate then, dominant hash rate. And it sounds like with LWMA then, you haven't seen pulse mining as a big problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, the biggest problem, it's not very profitable for the person that does it, but it can cause some long block times for us for a short period of time, because just as responsive as it is on the way up, it's pretty responsive on the way down too. So if you start getting 20-minute block times, that difficulty is going to start decreasing drastically.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I know there's some projects that like the what is it? The cure was worse than the disease when they tried to deal with pulse mining. So their difficulty adjustment just priced out miners after they had some kind of an attack, and they're like, I give up, right? If it's taking too long, I've lost interest. I've got to attend to something else. Awesome. Okay. So as far as hardware battles, right? Like I ask a lot of other projects, it doesn't quite apply to you guys, as you know, and what Spock brought up so eloquently. It's an arms race, right? You start with CPU as the silicon, generally speaking. We'll use Ravencoin as one example. They thought they were going to be CPU mineable for a long time. And GPUs mining on their network happened way sooner than they thought. Same with ASICs, and it's kind of funny. Somebody put the cart before the horse and built an ASIC for it, but it wasn't as efficient as then the bit streams for FPGAs that came later. So now
Oh, wow.
FPGAs are right. They're the first class citizens on Ravencoin, or were moving towards something that makes it more difficult there. But it's an arms race, right? You start with cheap commodity silicon that is general purpose, and then it becomes
Yep.
more and more specialized. Is there anything that
Sure.
would happen with your network that would cause you guys to fork that you can see now? Sorry,
They would
fork
just
the
cause.
proof of work algorithm.
Oh, to change the proof of work.
Yes.
Oh, okay. We have talked about moving to RandomX or something.
Hmm.
So I think the issue is not, the issue in a way is that if you do some kind of CPU thing, potentially you can have a larger group of miners, a more diverse community, or, I think that's the hope. And,
Yep.
so it has less to do, I think, with security or, getting dominated by one person, at least for projects at our scale. So we have thought about that, and we're continuing to think about it. It's not on the roadmap yet, but it's likely after our BLS stuff is done that we'll look into that more and decide if it's worth doing that.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like then it would be that sort of a change. You don't see that there's the likelihood of there being an outside threat to hash rate dominance or whatever else, as much as you want to stay true to your core vision and mission statement of decentralizing and making it more accessible.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's awesome. I
Right.
mean, I'm seeing a
Yes.
trend. I'm seeing a trend here, guys. There's a theme, and I really like what I'm
Yep.
hearing. It's cool.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to monitor RandomX, and because there's a lot of claims, and a lot of algos have said you won't be able to GPU mine this. There's no way, it's CPU forever. But RandomX has taken an interesting approach, especially with the requirement of so much RAM. So as we watch that and see how it plays out, I personally like the idea of RandomX a lot. I think that our community would like it, and we could possibly attract more to the community because of features like that.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about the profile of a miner that is currently mining DeVault today. So a bit like how some people talk about customer profiles. Is there a person or like a persona that you want mining for you? Who is that? Who's the ideal DeVault miner?
So the ideal DeVault miner would be someone that is as interested in contributing to the community and growing as they are in profit. Obviously, profit's usually the main driver when it comes to mining. I know back when I mined, I would mine a lot of coins that I've never even heard of because it was profitable at the time, right? Whereas as I started to get more involved in projects, I did find myself mining the project that I believed in, maybe not the most profitable today, but I believe that tomorrow or in the future the potential upside was greater than what I could get today. So that's what I would like to see. I would like to see more people that want to get involved and helping provide different services, or basically help the community in any way. We honestly, we do have some core community miners, but we've had less interaction from miners than I would like. We'll say that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, mining is it's a tricky proposition. It does tend to attract a certain profile that doesn't always match up with crypto idealists. So
That's true.
okay, cool. That's good to know. As far as privacy, guys, let's totally change gears here and talk a little about privacy on DeVault today. Is there a percentage of transactions on your network today that are private?
No. So since we're basically a fork of BCH, we're just using the regular elliptic curve signatures. So it's basic Bitcoin at that level.
Got
today.
it. Got it. He'd be a basic BCH. All snap.
it's funny.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm the host. These are the jokes. Apologies, guys.
That was good.
I'm also a dad, so corny
Yeah.
jokes for days. But
Yep.
let's talk about like privacy at the protocol level. Have you guys evaluated it? Is there something that really has your attention today?
Well, so I worked at Pivx, so we looked a lot at privacy. We used Zero Coin. which wasn't really my choice when I joined, but it had been decided upon, which was decent at the time. It definitely had some advantages over some of the other things that were out there. So I've kept an eye on that, and I think the most prominent one now is Zcash's sapling, ZK snark type privacy, and there's an awful lot of work in that area in terms of improving it one way or the other. So that seems to be the dominant one. To me, though, there were still issues with it in terms of you either had very long prove times or spend times, or a lot of bloat or whatever. So it didn't. It's we weren't aiming. So DeVault wasn't really aiming to be a privacy coin. So taking on something like that, my approach was I'll wait a little more to see how things stabilize, and maybe in a year or two there'll be a lot more convergence, because a lot of the work, if you work on a privacy coin and you adopt one of these things, you have to, it's also kind of like every 6 months you need to improve on it and redo it, and there's a lot of pain involved in that in terms of supporting old code and transactions and things like that. So I feel like it's, unless you're a privacy coin that's your main focus, there's an awful lot of work supporting that, and it's kind of a little bit throwaway work. So so on the other hand, I've also always felt that privacy is of some form is necessary in a coin, because not having privacy, having everything transparent is obviously not good. And even cash has more privacy than that. So even Visa, not everyone can see what you're spending your money or whatever. So while looking at that, I was also investigating BLS signatures, which is a very cool way of replacing the signatures in a block with one signature. So, and that's part of the reason we kind of forked out BCH rather than BTC, was because we weren't interested in using SegWit, where they segment off the signatures into a different kind of block or part of the block. And BCH at that time avoided that, and also they were looking into using Schnorr. Actually, at the time we had forked them, they already had Schnorr in the code base, which is another kind of way of aggregating signatures. However, BLS has the advantage that you don't need interactivity between the various people involved to aggregate the signatures. So with Schnorr, you do need a certain amount of interactivity between different transactions in order to sign things and aggregate them. Whereas BLS, you do not need that. So, so if you look at your typical block, half the block could be just due to the signatures. Basically, for every input in a transaction, you have to sign it, and that's basically 65 bytes. So out of the total transaction size, it adds up to be quite a lot. Where with BLS, basically, you would also sign every input, but you can aggregate those. So if you had 1,000 inputs, you could have a signature that is the same size as just one signature rather than 1,000 times, the signature size.
Got it. So it sounds like you've already been doing some initial evaluation of BLS signatures as potentially a means to decrease the amount that needs to be written into the block, not to prune it after the fact, or to prune the blockchain after the fact, but to decrease the burden of recording transactions moving forward. But you're saying there's the possibility of improving privacy this way as well.
Yes, so I'm getting there. So we actually have this working on testnet, and so and we've done a certain amount of stress testing and things like that. So initially, I was thinking of BLS as an improvement, a scalability feature, which will allow a lot more transactions in a block because the signature is a lot smaller. And while I was working on that and looking into it, I also was aware of a paper by someone who came up with a method to use BLS signatures to actually do something along the lines of confidential transactions, which would allow you to aggregate the signatures, but no longer be able to tie inputs to outputs. So you would just have a bunch of inputs and a bunch of outputs, but you wouldn't know which output came from which input, which you typically do know in a Bitcoin transaction. And with just regular BLS, you would also know if it was done the standard way. So this is something that actually was mentioned. It's mentioned on the Mimblewimble wiki, and a couple other coins talked about doing it, but never did it. So so I looked into that. I didn't, there's basically like a white paper on it, and it took me a little bit to figure it out. But basically, I tried it out, and it looks like it works. And the trade-off there is what you end up doing is you not only sign the inputs, but you actually sign the outputs as well by generating these random keys. And so the slight disadvantage as opposed to regular BLS is that your transaction size grow again because you're now signing outputs as well as inputs. But you can still aggregate those signatures. So even though a single transaction will be a little bigger, you still get gains as you aggregate. So recently I did a couple of Medium articles about this, about how it can be used in Default, and it turns out that the transaction size without aggregating is roughly the same as our current elliptic curve sizes.
Yep.
It sort of depends on the number of inputs or outputs, but we kind of lose some of the scalability that we get with just BLS, but now we actually get privacy within a block. So and as you aggregate that, what you'll see is just one transaction in the block with all inputs and outputs that are not connectable. So that gives us the kind of that gives us a base level of privacy. So there's arguments whether that's as good as various other ones.
Sure. It sounds like the anonymity set size is entirely a function, a coincidental function of the number of inputs and outputs then that are happening organically now. You don't have any way of artificially increasing that anonymity set size today.
Right.
Right.
So if there's only one transaction in a block, it's not anonymous at all. If there's 1,000, then that's the degree of anonymity you get.
Sure.
So, and I think once we've got that in, we can work with other ways to improve on that. But at least it's a base level thing that I think brings us up to something like coin mixing, or something like what Dash has now. So
Sure.
I think we can expand on it more, but at least it is at a cost of not bloating the block, and also not meaning that the transaction spends and proofs are going to take a really long time. We're able to get what I consider a decent level of privacy.
That's very cool.
Yep.
Well, plus, you guys will have another first, right? It'll be something that that your team can stand behind and say, like, "Hey, we contributed something to the greater knowledge base of improving anonymity on blockchain." So,
Absolutely.
guys, great.
And I would say that set is actually a bit stronger privacy than Dash, because it would be an always on feature. As we transitioned over, it would be not something that some of the network does. It would be all the network. And we were just discussing like a day or two ago about ideas to further that anonymity set through, like you said, providing master nodes perhaps, but actually providing a service, so a second tier node that contributes a random amount of transactions and completely randomized transactions to the anonymity set to reach some type of threshold per block, right? So that's another way. And another thing is, because we do have the token protocol that we're wanting to work with, and it may, from looking at BLS, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do it. And if we did do it with this anonymity set, that means our tokens would also have that anonymity is set as well. So I'm not sure how many blockchains or networks have any type of anonymity on the second layer token. So that would be a pretty cool, interesting thing to do as well.
There is one, but they were limited nameless during your interview. Maybe we could chat after we wrap. But
cool.
That's so cool, guys. That is so cool. No, really, I'm way excited for you. This concept of sort of like so in 2018, when I started to really publish a lot more, I spoke to a lot of proof of work coins, especially that were GPU oriented, and we talked about this concept of proof of useful work. That there's a lot of compute cycles that we just throw into the atmosphere, right, as heat, basically, and then not even very good at like cogeneration, right, recapturing heat and driving some kind of a turbine or something. We're very just not as intelligent about it as we could be, and
it's true. Yep.
And you look at the larger scale operations, and what they've learned through scale is just amazing efficiency. I wish we could be a little more that way on the small to mid scale. But we talked about proof of useful work a lot, thinking like, okay, well, some of these compute cycles, you have a lot of hashing algorithm reuse. You have a lot of coins that could potentially be merge mined if they just chose to. The CryptoNote spec, for example, called for it. Yep. And you look at the number of CryptoNotes that actually do merge mining, offer merge mining, or have historically. Precious few. And so that's kind of, that conversation has changed as masternode coins have seen very clearly too, like, oh, well, shoot, nobody outside of the cryptocurrency circles views what we do as valuable. How do we generate value? Well, we've got all of this, the shadow inventory of whatever, several thousand nodes that are just lying fallow, right? People are renting a VPS and not really pushing it to its limits. They're spending anyway. Why don't we just push some, do some cycle scavenging on some of these nodes? And, we're in the age of what I call service nodes now, or some kind of value-added service nodes now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with you, tumbling nodes, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yep.
Congrats. I mean, you guys are thinking about something that I don't think many projects are talking openly about right now. So that sounds promising.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about right now mobile wallet support. And thanks for kind of indulging me in a conversation about privacy on your coin that today does not publicly tout itself as a privacy-oriented coin. That's
true.
Guys, I know you went on a limb there talking about that publicly. So thanks for being game. But as far as mobile wallet support right now, you mentioned before, Spock, that you had done an SPV wallet for, I guess it was Dash before.
That's right, yeah.
And then it was met with, typical crypto sphere toxicity and skepticism.
Yep.
Sorry, not sorry. It's like it's the rite of passage, right? Like, are you really in crypto if somebody hasn't tried to totally like bite your head off?
Right.
That's true.
So today. Hey, he's back.
Oh, there he is.
Right now, I'm gonna get.
So we do have mobile wallets.
Down.
We do have mobile wallets. We have code for one on iOS, iPhone, if you want to build it yourself, but we don't have anything on store.
Got it. I'm a bit of an AOSP purist. I'm a bit of a Linux purist. I'm like, if you have an iOS device, sorry. Retail outlets, they still process returns. They'll still give you your dirty fiat back. Go get an Android and put AOSP on it. Real talk. And then run Linux. So,
absolutely.
Obviously, we can't convert the entire world. Sorry about the iOS wallet not shipping today. That's cool, though. Mobile wallet experience, what is it like? I mean, as far as the user feedback that you're getting, do people like using DeVault mobile as much as they do on the desktop?
Yeah, I think the D-Lite mobile app gets quite a few has quite a few users, and a lot of people that's all they use. I think there's some people that don't have Core or anything else, so that's what they use primarily. And it is a good wallet. Our desktop version has DeVault ID, so where you can register a username on the blockchain, and then people can just enter that username to send you coins. Whereas the mobile wallet doesn't have that built in yet. So it would be great to get that built in. Now the iOS version has it. We just don't have that released. But it's much easier to get to release on the Play Store. So hopefully we can get that caught up onto the Android app, because that is a great feature I would like to see us use more.
Got it. Can I do a feature request right now? So
What's that?
something occurs to me that from your desktop wallet app, you may be able to export a QR code for that and then the username. And then there may be an SMS API out there somewhere that'll let you just kick off a text over to the user. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe.
Be pretty cool.
Just saying. I like trying to
Yeah,
trying to add some value to projects that I talk to because we just don't have. I don't have time for toxicity, man. I can't live that life. I want to try to help wherever I am. Help every
Absolutely.
project. I mean, if we can get this crypto market cap, like giving us the promise of moving towards a trillion again, then then I know the Fed keeps printing money faster than we can build value.
I know.
But maybe we
Yeah.
stand some chance of social relevance. If
We
keep
just
on
need Tether to
building.
print a few trillion, and we'll be okay.
Oh, jeez. Your lips
Oops,
too.
did I say that?
Yeah. Your lips to the Koch brothers. Who is this behind all this? The Illuminati? Whatever. Write them a letter.
Yeah, exactly.
Send them a fax. I think that's what
Dear
they
Mr.
prefer.
Rockefeller. Yeah, sorry about that. My router just overheated, I guess, or something, because I rebooted it a couple times and it just wouldn't go.
Okay. Well, have these, have your core of nerds get you on open
No,
open
it's
WRT.
happened before. I just need a new one. I'll get a new one.
Okay.
That was really annoying. Let's just say that.
Sorry about that. Let's talk about privacy. Now that you're back, let's talk about privacy. And guys, this is
what
the
I
opinion
missed.
part. This is the fun part. We talked
Okay,
about all
fun
the
part.
the nuts and bolts of what makes your project tick, and it's great. I mean, you guys have upcoming announcements. This is the time to plug them before we talk about privacy. Like shameless plug. What is awesome about DeVault that's coming up that nobody knows that you want to break on my show?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we have coming in the near future would be BLS, which we just talked about, because we are pretty deep into testing that. And at this point, I think it's going to go to a community vote here soon. And then it'll be sprint towards getting towards a release with that, which we do have our 1 year coming up. That's in about a month, or yeah, about a month. So the hopefully we can have a vote or something around then, and then have an idea for our next year roadmap.
Dude, awesome.
I don't know if you guys touched on this, but I did message them the other day, and I was like, hey, maybe I messaged Proteus so far. I'm not really comfortable with pushing it to everybody yet, but I was thinking maybe we do some sort of algorithm change too. Maybe we ask what do you guys think would be helpful to you? Because the number one complaint I think we get right now is I don't have an ASIC miner, and it's yeah, well, understandable, but they're cheap if you want to go get one. But the people just they would rather put $100 into coins, it seems like, than to go buy a mining setup. So providing people at maybe a GPU, something different for the next year would be nice, I think. But again, community vote, we have to discuss that with everybody. So, but that's something that I think would be exciting, at least.
No, you make a fair point. I mean, on both sides, right? Like an S9 used costs less than an AMD Ryzen right now,
But
or a
it's just
GPU.
people think, oh, I just want to use the computer I already have. For the most part, I think that's most miners nowadays that are getting into it. They don't want to go invest into specialized hardware necessarily. They just want to be able to use what they've already purchased, or maybe some used hardware from a friend or something.
That makes sense, man. That makes sense. So cool. So this is then unofficially still unofficial.
Yeah, we still got to figure it out. I mean, we would love more feedback on just the subject matter. I know there's a couple of specific people we won't name that are really wanting us to change to GPU mining, and then there's a couple people that don't mind either way, because all they do is buy on the market, and they like the ASIC auto dumping system we have going on. Because basically what happens is ASIC miners are going to be the ones that have the cheapest electricity right now, and can fund, right now I think it's an average of 5 Satoshis, 6 Satoshis somewhere to mine a one DeVault. So if you're just going to buy 100,000, it makes more sense to buy it off the market, right? But so the miners are basically mining at a loss and dumping at a loss because they can't mine Bitcoin blocks, or they can't mine Bitcoin Cash block because they don't have enough hash or whatever, right? So they mine us instead. And I think that dynamic has worked really well for getting the coins spread out. It hasn't worked really well for keeping the chart looking good, which is another complaint we get, is our chart or our price or whatever you want to call it. So I think we could address we don't have to make it permanent, but some sort of GPU method of getting the coins out to a new group of people. And I think, again, I don't know if we touched on this earlier because I missed a lot of it, but my number one thing is I don't care about the price. I just care about how many users we have. So I think switching up a couple times, over the first 5 years is probably pretty healthy in terms of attracting different types of people.
Got it. Okay, cool. So then sounds like these are conversations that you guys are having with the community in the near future.
Yeah.
Awesome. Looking forward to hearing more about that. Let's change gears completely into privacy opinions, guys. So there are no wrong answers here. The only wrong answer is to not have an opinion here. I'm just going to tell you straight up. If you don't have an opinion, I'm going to clown you. That's what's going to happen. So, what are your favorite private currencies? And the caveat is, I don't mean cryptocurrencies. I mean any medium of exchange. It's not a wrong answer.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just to get my little quick opinion out of the way, it's very important. I mean, obviously, we can't have a world where there's no privacy. It wouldn't work very well because we can't trust the people in authority. So, with that being the case, then privacy seems to be a very important thing going forward, especially with technology progressing the way it is. We've seen countries like China and other places around the world that are like North Korea or whatever, where they really like to clamp down on what's allowed and what's not allowed. So I think if you're going to create technologies to enable that, which is probably what they're investing into as much as they can right now, it's probably good as on the other side of that to create technologies that create freedom. So money and open source money is way more freedom oriented than a closed source money, and so on and so forth. So I think inherently that's privacy, right? Like open source money is geared towards privacy compared to I mean, cash is separate, but I mean like a government fiat digital currency type system, it doesn't seem like something we should really cheer for, in my opinion. So obviously, I think we would all agree that privacy in that aspect is very much fundamental, right?
Sure. Well, hey, I mean, again, you're gonna hear me quote Satoshi
Absolutely.
often. I love quoting dead people. I mean, so we'll.
Maybe.
I've been accused of
Might
it.
be dead.
Old dead people. For the purposes of most conversations, I'm just gonna say, not Satoshi's dead and the whole like God is dead type thing, because frankly, we should not be treating Satoshi like the tech prophet. We should be like, okay, cool, pioneer. Let him just
Thanks,
him,
bud.
her, them, do whatever. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Grab the torch. Let's keep on running. But he talked about how blockchain vis-a-vis Bitcoin, that it would appeal to the libertarians of the world, people who were Ron Paulites of that time, because that was contemporary
True.
to when he was writing. Right? It's like, no, you're already talking about sound money. So I hear you loud and clear, man. If you don't have a little bit of that in you, GTFO, man. Crypto doesn't need you. Really.
I mean,
That's
I
why-
think that's why a lot of people, especially myself, we're drawn to crypto because of the self-sovereignty aspect and the pseudo-anonymity. Did you have something you wanted to say, Jake?
Oh, I was just gonna say, and that's what makes me angry about all these exchange systems that we have now that are all KYC oriented, and it seems like the gatekeepers of the whole ecosystem nowadays have become these anti-privacy entities, and so I would like to see a move away from that personally.
Yeah, no, Dex, man. Dex. I think
Yeah.
one thing, I don't know if you, Vitalik is another, right, like a lightning rod character, right? Either polarizing, either you love him or you hate him, but there's no in between, right? So whatever your opinions are of Vitalik, his quotable quote, right? Centralized exchanges can go to hell as much as possible.
100%.
So
Absolutely.
let's talk about those favorite private currencies then. So Jake, he kicked it off with cash. Guys, let's get an entry from all three of you. What are some other favorite private currencies? I've heard crazy stuff on the show. I mean,
So if I was gonna, of Bitcoin-based coins, I think the best privacy set right now would be Cash Fusion. I don't know if you've heard of that, and that's another thing. That's something that we could very quickly implement ourselves because that's done mostly through Electron Cash, as far as I know. There may be other wallets that are going to integrate it, but as of right now, it's done through Electron Cash, which we forked for our mobile wallet and Light Wallet. But anyways, that's much like CoinJoin, but taken to another level. So instead of just splitting out into denominations and mixing them together, it does that, but then it also recombines them into less identifiable sets. So it's got an extra layer there. I need to look more into it. I can't say that I fully 100% on everything that it's doing, but I know that's the general idea of advanced beyond CoinJoin. And then other than that, if I was going to, if I was trying to have the best privacy set right now, I would probably use Monero for the specific, whatever. So.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so I probably would also use Monero. If I had to pick a coin out there now, that's in terms I would use, that's one I bought a long time ago, and I hadn't seen anything that's really surpassed it in terms of usage, and
It's true.
so other ones are interesting too. I think in terms of technology, there's one called Elixir, which is based on this guy David Chaum, who did a lot of early crypto stuff, which is kind of a mixed net type of privacy. Looks really interesting. So I don't think they have anything out yet, but I kind of like the mixing, like Cache Fusion or Elixir type things, because it just seems less problematic than the ZK Snark, Zcoin type things,
Right.
which always seem to have some kind of flaw that is really dangerous and might end up causing huge inflation or something.
Sure.
So I think it's early on for that stuff. So that's just kind of my feelings on it at this
Yeah,
point.
that makes sense, man.
Can I change my answer to Verge?
Oh my gosh. No.
I'm just going for the content here, guys. I think that would be the clip.
I lied. There's one wrong answer. Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I would need a private currency is to buy porn, right?
Dude. Right.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll stop.
Oh my gosh. So as far as so Spock, you're talking about like ZK snarks being potentially like problematic because it's air quotes moon math, right? I don't know about y'all, but I do not know anybody from NASA who's free to work on crypto projects. So yeah, it's like you literally need like whatever a rocket science engineering degree to understand what goes on under the.
And I think history has kind of proven, not to knock those guys at all that are working on those techs, but then hopefully they figure it out long term. But I think that there's been like 6 hacks worth lots of money over the last like 4 or 5 years only. So that's a little hard to deal with in terms of like when Proteus earlier said like another project we worked on, Smart Cash, we had started with zero coin because we wanted privacy, but it just turned out that you had to take the entire code base out because you couldn't trust it long term. You needed, like you said, NASA engineers basically to make sure that things working all the time. And so like it's very hard to keep that up. I think that was one of the reasons we started DeVault without privacy as well. Is like we looked at Navcoin, we looked at a lot of different projects when we were looking at what code base to start with, right? And so we initially was like, we only have the 2 main guys right now. We don't want to overload with the day-to-day what we have to deal with. And if there's like exploits floating around left and right that we have to worry about in a trapdoor systems or whatever, then that gets a little difficult when you have 2 people, right? So it seems more logical to just start off with something that we know works, that we can see working, and then once we do see a more proven mechanism, or something we figured we can handle ourselves because it does give us value to work on something new, that's different, I'd say, as opposed to just starting with a Monero fork, even though we all agree Monero is probably the best privacy set in the industry right now. And that goes to show like you can't really scale privacy very well either. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Sure. Is like how do you do all this in conjunction, not just focus on privacy, not just focus on scaling. So that's something we've been trying to keep in mind as well.
That makes sense, guys. Hey, appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about this. So the private currencies you guys mentioned. Now, Jake brought up cash. My follow-up question is always, you chose a currency that you say is private. Have you used it? So, Jake, have you ever used cash?
Yeah. So I've been outside of crypto. I'm part of the legal cannabis industry. I've been doing that for about 10 years as well. So I know firsthand like what cash is capable of using and how effective it can be and the limitations of it. And so I was early Potcoin, like, yeah, this is gonna be great, until I realized, like, working in the industry, like, it's just not gonna happen. Cash is king because cash is very utilitarian and it just works. The only downside of cash is when you got to take it to the bank, and usually they can pick it up nowadays. So like even in the weed industry, like that used to be a big problem. So I would say just because of that, just because it's reality is reality, guys. Like we live in a government-owned world. We live on government-owned fiat. So at the end of the day, until that becomes a digital thing where we lose our privacy there, yeah, just use it. You know what I mean? Use it as a tool. It's just a tool. Use it how it's supposed to be used. I would say don't sit on piles of cash. Obviously, it doesn't have a lot of value. The downside of cash is obviously the inflation rate, so on and so forth. So that's kind of why I'm in crypto, is just because I want to balance out my portfolio of utility. Cash is part of that portfolio still. Hopefully,
and you are trying to get rid of all that cash you have stuffed under your mattress too. I mean, I think you pretty much just gave.
Much,
that was your
honestly.
tell, brother. I think we just figured out your game.
I'm a crypto person, so everything I get that's outside of my bills usually goes into crypto for the most part. So, but the reason I say cash is just because, like, if we're gonna talk privacy and we're gonna be real about it, like, there's nothing better than cash still right now. If you get a truck full of cash and you drive across state borders or whatever else, no one's tracking you. You just spend the cash somewhere else in small amounts. So like I think that's what when we say privacy, I think that's the point of it, right? Obviously there's other upsides to digital technologies compared to fiat, but that's not what we were talking about. So
yeah, no, that's awesome though. I totally agree. It's still the fastest way to get $5,000 from New York to Berlin is to put it in a suitcase and fly.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go over 10,000, the Fed or the powers that be are like, wait a second,
Yep.
the alphabet boys.
And Cash doesn't have a lot of fees anymore. It's pretty streamlined in terms of like if you use crypto a lot. Like I just bought like with $600 Bitcoin last night. I already lost $10 instantly off that. So it's like, that's not necessarily better than Cash, but the reason I'm okay with paying that fee is to get the other benefits of crypto.
Yeah, right. Well, let's talk about that in just a second here too. So first off, guys, Spock and Proteus, have you guys used Monero?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a full node right now.
I have in the past. I don't anymore, and I would probably agree with Jake and pick Cash as superior at this point in time for real world usage. Yeah.
Sure, that makes sense. As far as privacy wallets, and because we've been talking a lot about privacy at the protocol level for cryptos, and then fiat, right? The Cash has been the main privacy expression of fiat for forever, right? Or banknotes or some kind of bearer bonds, right? Some sort of bearer instrument. But within crypto, do you have a favorite privacy wallet? And more, maybe let's expand on it a little bit. Do you think that privacy, with what you guys are talking about, with potentially exploring BLS signatures and expanding into something that's privacy oriented with BLS signatures, do you think that there is maybe an opportunity for third parties to contribute on the client side with wallets that include some sort of tumbling action or assist in increasing the privacy and anonymity of the users of your coin?
Well, I think anything that's going to contribute to your anonymity set, you want done via core in a decentralized way. So you don't want that. You wouldn't want third parties or light clients to try to contribute to that, especially if it wasn't done in a way that the consensus of it is done on core. So I personally don't think that would be something. When it comes to privacy wallets, I mean, you can have strong encryption. You can force password at start, which one thing to note is our client requires password to create a wallet, and it's a force encryption, all of that. So we definitely, though we're not a privacy coin, we've definitely put a lot of efforts into protecting our users.
Got it.
Yeah, that's probably I have to contribute there.
Sure. Well, let me.
I have a. I would say Samurai Wallet's a good, if we're talking about what's a good thing to build later on, if we wanted to build something similar, I would say, yeah, we have a core system, and if we wanted to increase privacy levels, I think what Proteus is saying, we probably want to build something like that, as opposed to trusting a third party to upkeep that and so on. Because if you get there and if their set is too big and ours is not, and they give up on what they're doing, then everyone's anonymity is kind of crap. So in that sense, yeah, I would say we probably don't want to ask for help from everybody else, but we probably could look for examples at like Samurai Wallet and Cash Fusion and things like that to increase. I think that was part of the question, right?
Sure. And that's just these are third-party efforts where there's nobody from the Ethereum core dev team talking about on the Ethereum calls Tornado Cash, for example.
Sure.
And there's nobody on the there's nobody at Blockstream who is maintaining Wasabi Wallet.
Sure.
For example. So, but they're free and open source, and so they're perfectly auditable by the core development team. So that's the only reason I brought up a third party. It was just bandwidth, right?
Sure.
Like development bandwidth.
Makes sense.
Right, yeah. That knowing laugh. It's like, development bandwidth. Is that a thing? Do I sleep?
Yeah. Got past me, man.
So that's why I'm curious about that. I mean, I don't know if you guys see that as an opportunity, but could it, let's just say that somebody did, for example, fork Samurai Wallet or Wasabi Wallet. Could it be adapted to work with your blockchain now?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, today it would be very easy because the hardest part if and when we do switch to PLS is for anything that has to sign a transaction or validate the signature in a transaction. We'll have to have a lot of work. Currently, we use the same signing as the elliptic curve cryptography as Bitcoin. So any wallet that does Bitcoin signatures, Bitcoin Cash, or Bitcoin-based fork signatures would be able to be forked and adapted for our blockchain.
Okay, got it. Very, very cool. Yeah, I haven't gotten an interview with Raj Revere, but I think he's been preparing for that question of like, hey, what could you implement some kind of privacy now? So it's cool that if the BCH ecosystem is dealing with privacy in a certain way, I'd love to see you guys. Maybe the next time we chat, I'd love to see you guys be like, hey, we got something for you, or part of our community or part of our developer contributor list, right? Somebody brought something up and we're usable, Right? We've got something that,
Yeah.
that
Nice.
maybe it's not even ours, but I'd love to hear that from you guys at some point in the future.
No, that'd be great. I think we've taken a lot of inspiration and a lot of stuff from them code base wise and just in terms of how much hours they put into their code, which is great. So it would be great to give back. I would say that I have encountered a little bit of like maximalism sparking up in the Bitcoin Cash community a little bit, like where it comes down to like, oh, you don't want to help Bitcoin Cash, you want to work on an altcoin, okay, never mind, we're going to ignore you. So I think that's a little bit of a barrier in doing that. But yeah, I definitely would love to see some open arms if we had something to offer them. I think for the time being, our cold reward system, for example, is remember back Roger was talking about his dividend tool and all that kind of stuff. So ours is sort of a system better than that that's built into the protocol, for example. So there's a little bit of similarities going on between ideologies and the way things are being built, but I think we're just being a little bit more experimental and a little bit more, we're a small group of people with a smaller community, so we don't have a lot of worry when we do something cool and different. I think Bitcoin Cash has to sort of start following that rigid model that Bitcoin started following a couple years back, where they don't change a lot, and if they do, it's like very much small, so that people don't have a lot of things to update or
Sure.
a lot of people relying on them to get code out and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
you
for
guys can
us, we
still
can
be-
do a lot of we can
Yeah.
still be nimble. So that's cool for us, and I would love to see them pick up a couple of our things that we're adding, because it's not like we're building something completely different. I mean, money is money at the end of the day, right? We might have a couple different features, but yeah, I would say that, like, scaling wise, I know that we've done a couple things that they've talked about wanting to do, like with the difficulty adjustment algorithms and stuff like that. So that's something right there. I wouldn't say that we created that, because we did pick that up out of their discussions, but we went ahead and implemented it. So
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Good artists borrow, great artists steal. I mean, like you gotta use what works. That makes sense. But
I mean, that's the point of forking, right? And open source at the end of the day.
100%, man. But it's cool that you guys are nimble enough, like you're saying. You can still be punk rock, throwing elbows and stuff. That's awesome. Let me ask, as far as just privacy tech in general. So, do you guys have a favorite privacy tech? Maybe outside of blockchain, could be like using Tor or using some piece of software, encryption on your desktop or on your phone, or just a VPN. What do each of you do to improve your personal data privacy?
Yeah, I have Lux. Oh, hang on. I have Lux level encryption on all of my drives, and kill switch VPN. The second my computer touches the internet, I hit VPN. Even my router, because I'm using, like you mentioned earlier, DDWRT. I have all of my Wi-Fi routed through a VPN as well, and so those are practices that I've had for a long time. I've usually all my my blockchain, my wallets and stuff, I would use Tor connection and all of that. So it's a good privacy practices. I mean, any type of crypto holder should be thinking about these things. Your phone should be encrypted. You shouldn't keep stuff on your phone. Nothing should be tied to your phone number. All of your drives should be encrypted, things like that. So I've always been a huge fan of privacy tech, open source tech, Linux, things like that. So also apps like, I don't know if you've heard of, everyone's heard of Signal, but there's apps that are doing it more in a decentralized way, like Silence, which is it's a fork of Signal, but it takes out the middleman where there's a centralized database, and your keys are exchanged via SMS. So there's the public key transfer that way. So just little things like that is tech that I've always been attracted to.
Very, very cool. So for the average user that's wanting to improve their privacy, guys, what is the one thing you'd recommend for them? And I'm going to pick on Jake because he can talk, but I want to know what he
I'm
does.
the worst person to ask. I've been sim hacked. I've been robbed. They found my house. Like, I don't even want to go into all that, but let's just say, don't ask me how to secure your identity, because I'm doxxed. Everyone knows me. I've been impersonated on Twitter like 2 weeks ago. My friends were hitting me up like, hey, there's some guy acting like he's you. Like, I just don't ask me. I'm not the guy to answer that. I'm gonna give some bad advice. And yeah, the best thing I do is get a $60 phone, throw a Bitcoin logo on it, obviously, but get a $60 phone. Don't put any connections to it, like Proteus said. And just do everything the hard way. If it's easier, it's probably a bad idea.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
and I learned that from experience.
So then it sounds like the top takeaway from Jake is burner phones.
Yeah.
Use them.
Burner phones.
Love them. You know what? Nixops on Twitter, he's going off on some advice in that area. He's saying, like, right now with the whole COVID-19 health consciousness, right, of when you go out in public, a lot of stores, like if you go to Costco, they're going to force you to wear a mask into their store.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, that's weird.
How do they? I mean, you could
That's
give them somebody else's.
privacy.
That's good
Yeah.
for privacy.
Exactly.
Privacy.
So you pair that with the ability to, like, certain stores that are still accepting cash. You can walk
Yeah.
into some stores with a mask, totally socially appropriate, sunglasses, say their prescription. You can walk right in. They don't know who the heck you are. You can pay in cash. You can get burner phones, burner SIMs. And, I mean, it's never been a better time to pick up that stuff.
And the cool thing about this is now all these things are like coded with what's it called, like the hash, like the hardware number or something inside. I forget what it's called right now. But point is they're all like, you can look up a phone right on the network somewhere.
ISMI.
There you go. Yeah. So like you can, if someone knows you're wealthy, like I have a friend of mine who was like his Coinbase was hacked for a lot of money. You know what I mean? Like, and so that didn't stop that he had Coinbase or any of that stuff didn't stop him, because at the end of the day, they found out who he was, they found out his devices, they found out how to get into his email. And like I think that's okay. Number one thing that I've learned from Proteus actually, randomize your passwords. That's probably the best thing you can do. Doesn't matter if you memorize your password. Randomize it, download a password app manager or something. But like the whole having your same password everywhere type mindset is what gets you hacked, I would say. That's what got me SIM hacked. That's what got my email hacked. Any of that, right? It always comes down to some old gaming website I had account on is using the same password or something, right? And then they just checked a list somewhere that relates to my email. Boom, they check 6 passwords. One of them might work, you know? So I think that's number one rule that I can actually give that has helped me a lot.
Okay, so password management then.
Yeah.
All right. And then, hey, Spock, you've been sitting there like Hamlet's father. I know you got something juicy.
No, actually, I'm not. My biggest thing is just as a developer staying anonymous and not showing my face. So,
He's very
but yeah,
handsome,
I'm
though.
not.
So what you're saying is you've already
So-
screenshotted him just in case you
No,
need
no.
leverage.
Never.
So, I mean, some of the reason I want to be anonymous is I don't want my employer knowing I'm doing other things. So, but also, I think like as what happened with Jake, I warned some other developers in Pivx at one point. They were putting out their names, the real names and stuff, and someone can basically find out where you live and say, oh, you're a developer, you must have
Yep.
a couple $1 million worth of Pivx or whatever. I'm just going to go to your house and break in, and so especially if you're working on a privacy coin, because then they can just move it to somewhere else, and
Exactly.
it's not there's no way you can trace it or anything.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I lived
but I'm not
driving
so
distance
much-
from a Pivx developer. So you're saying I should
He's got millions.
He's got a mansion in
Wait
the
a minute,
backyard.
where do you live, Seth?
driving distance to a Pivx developer. I'll let you run
you
the
in the
rest of the
US or no?
possibilities. I'm US based. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do I seem
Okay.
Canadian? Shoot.
No, I mean that's what we were thinking when you
Nope.
said that. We were thinking Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's enough information. We know basically most of them.
Yeah. Basically, right.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, like same with what Spock's saying. Like that's where I gave up at some point in time. Like he likes to remain anonymous. At one point, I had the anonymous mask as my Twitter thing for years, right? And that was kind of my thing, is not showing my face. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of work. I was trying to do marketing at the same time. It's very hard to do marketing and be anonymous. So as a developer, that works. But it's very easy to get excited about crypto and then give up on the whole privacy thing. So I would say even if you don't want to be like completely anonymous, like there's still plenty of stuff you can do to make sure your information's safe. I would say number one thing is
Absolutely.
just like be conscious of what you share. And that's probably the most important thing out there is like if you share it, people are going to see it. Like it doesn't just get deleted off the internet. You know what I mean? Put it on Facebook, they saved it somewhere. You put it on Instagram, they saved it somewhere. So that's just kind of a mindset. People are getting very open with what we're willing to send across the web. And at the same time, you got to remember who owns the internet at the end of the day. So, if they want to data mine what you're sending people, they're going to data mine what you're sending people. Best thing you can do, be smart about it, use a signal app, use something encrypted, and you'll probably be just fine at that point for most people.
Yeah. No, I think in the aggregate, all the advice you guys have given so far, I think it's definitely helpful. I mean, like what Spock was saying, there's no reason that even if you're doxxed in one area and in one pursuit, there's no reason you can't create sock puppet accounts or different shadow accounts. You can, like, anybody is capable of setting up a new email address somewhere. So I think, you guys, that's all really good advice. I really appreciate you sharing that. I hopefully you've helped to improve the privacy IQ of the audience. But let's talk a little bit about just overarching question. I'm pretty sure I can surmise the answer from each of you, but it's the only closed-ended question I'm going to ask you guys. Does privacy matter?
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely too.
100%. Yeah,
Well,
I mean, if we're especially going forward, we see things like the current crisis, giving an excuse, and then not to say anything about all the people sick or whatever, all that stuff, but it just we're letting people take authority that didn't have that authority before, and I think that's probably something to keep an eye on, just to keep it nice and middle ground. But yeah, if we don't have privacy and we're letting governments erode our privacy, there's nothing to gain from that.
yeah, no, totally agreed. Let me ask you. Let's characterize what a total lack of privacy, or what privacy implemented incorrectly, would do to the world. What would the world look like?
I think if you look at the communist regimes, they pretty much stripped away as much privacy as they could by surveilling everything you do. And it seems China's going that way more and more, and other countries are too. So, and it can be used for control, where basically, if you just say anything negative, they know who you are, and they'll do something to make sure you shut up if you're not saying what goes along with the party line. So it just consolidates power more and more, I think.
Got it.
I
Yeah.
think
So
on a more realistic level, you won't be able to tweet.
yeah, right. Yeah, we've already seen
Right.
that. I mean, that's not even a question of being involved in crypto now, right? Just have the
Yeah,
wrong
just saying.
wrong political
know,
opinion.
Priorities are priorities,
It's
guys.
true.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's reverse that, guys. What would total privacy look like, or privacy implemented correctly to the correct level in the world look like? If we got this right, we reach for the gold ring as humanity, right, as society, and we achieve it. What is total privacy like?
That's a good one.
I think the best tool we have for privacy now is exactly what Bitcoin highlights, which is the power behind RSA cryptography, public-private key cryptography. Especially as we start getting more into quantum computing and stuff like that. As much as quantum could be used to break all of our existing privacy, it could also be used to create unbreakable privacy. I mean, privacy that supersedes anything that we have now, and that could be at the protocol level for everything, for all of the packets and everything transferred on the internet. There's been some studies looking at quantum entanglement as a source of manipulating data for like an ISP. But I mean, I think that things like that, there's next level technology that we can either decide to use it to destroy all resemblance of privacy that we have now, because it can. I mean, there will come a point where 512-bit SHA 256, whatever it is, it will be crackable eventually. So hopefully we use that technology to build stronger encryption that we can then implement in our cryptocurrencies and things like that. Yeah, that's my answer.
Very cool. So, I mean, that was poetic, man. Seriously, that might make some of the the opening sequence of this video when it goes to YouTube. But so, in your opinion, then, of Bitcoin is like the pattern for privacy in the future.
Yep, it's definitely an example. It's yeah.
Awesome. Guys, any of your thoughts?
I was gonna wait on Spock. I got an idea, but it's not as important.
So I was going to say much more than that. I mean, I think there's a lot of things where more privacy would help. Just doing various things. At one point I had an idea for a token coin where you'd have privacy, and basically, for let's say you're going to the gym and you just want to log in, and they don't really need to know your real name and address and everything, and they don't need to really have a log of that. So using privacy, you're just proving the fact that you have a membership, but you can obscure like when you're going, and so there's lots of things like that, applications that we haven't even really thought of, that could just mean there's less people spying on us and knowing everything we do, and which I think is just in general better overall for everyone. I would say though that just focusing on privacy and forgetting about all the other things such as decentralization and various other things is not by itself is not going to be probably world changing. I think there's a lot of problems that are as big, if not bigger than that.
Sure. No, to your point, definitely, and we see that problem with within cryptocurrencies, right, and within blockchain rather, and we have projects that claim to be building some sort of decentralized layer on top of a centralized solution, and we know that's impossible, right? It's a false premise.
Right.
So
Yeah.
to your point, like with privacy too, there needs to be some degree of decentralization and self sovereignty added into the mix. Otherwise, the privacy is built on false premises, and it's doomed to fail.
I'm waiting
So
for Coinbase to say they have privacy. Yeah, so my thing was just it's not as technologically focused as that, but I just think in a real world application standpoint, like more privacy equals more freedom. More freedom equals more like just happy people, better people, less angry people, right? Less crime in general, just because, why do you need to go steal from people if somebody's willing to help you and so on and so forth. I think so. If with that being said, less privacy creates dictatorships, creates communism, creates all these like systems that are just like designed to pick on people and take from people, right? So if you have a completely private world, let's just assume for a second, whatever that may mean or doesn't mean doesn't matter. But in a real application, you have private email, private meetings. Most of instead of your phone app taking 17 different data points from you, it takes one. I think that's a privacy in real world application standpoint, like as opposed to, oh, I want to be the anonymous trench coat guy that nobody recognizes. I don't think that's very feasible. If you're somebody worth knowing about, people will know about you. It doesn't have to be, but maybe your assets are private. Maybe your personal information relating to your healthcare is private, not just available to any hospital that has the authority. I think authority and privacy are kind of opposites, right? So the more authority, less privacy. More privacy, less authority people have over you. So, or over those things that are private. So money, communication, whatever your social media. Maybe instead of Facebook going forward being more open, it's more closed circle system, and or things like that. People are just need to become more conscious of why their data is valuable and why companies are making billions of dollars just by letting you download an app. Like it doesn't make any sense that people don't understand that, right? So I think in a completely private world, everybody would understand that. Everybody would try to do best practices to keep themselves safe, not even just from the governments, but from criminals, because there's always going to be crime, right? One way or the other. I think that's kind of a safe thing to say for now until we start, really screwing with humanity. You're probably going to always have criminals. So why not make it harder for the criminals to find the people that are worth anything or that don't want to be found or so on, as opposed to everyone's like an open book right now in terms of data points or in terms of passwords and all that kind of stuff. And it's all because we have this open mindset on privacy. We don't think it's important because the governments want to tell us like, hey, just let us deal with it. We'll get rid of it. But at the end of the day, I think privacy is it's a moral standpoint that you got to adopt on yourself. And like most people don't do that until they learn their lesson, right? Like I didn't care about privacy for the longest time,
Sure. Well, and that's brilliant too. I mean, I think you brought up a really important moral lesson there as well, Jake. As far as saying like police, FBI, or whatever, they've never sim hacked you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like the authorities never sim hacked you.
Yeah.
But
they provide the opening for people to do that because they dictate that needs to be the way it is, so they have easy access. But I think going forward, like if you're a law-abiding citizen, so be it. Like they don't need to investigate every aspect of your life to prove that you're not. Like you're either caught doing a crime or you're not. I think that's that simple. So this excuse of we need more access to make sure that you're all safe, I don't think that's what we want to go with, because at the end of the day, you're just opening the door for criminals.
Sure. Guys, this is brilliant. We could probably go on. It sounds like again, it sounds like we hit a familiar and very beloved chord for each person here in this chat. Definitely cryptocurrency, blockchain in general, it tends to attract us, this tribe. So I appreciate you being game. Right, talk about it. As far as any additional stuff about the DeVault, I mean, maybe top question is, what's the best way for people who don't know the project to contact you and be involved?
Yeah,
Probably Discord.
Discord. Yeah, for sure. I was going to say the same thing. I'll just give the little spiel real quick if you want. So basically, we have a couple exchanges. We're on GraviX, we're on SouthX. SouthX is our main exchange in terms of volume. We don't get a lot of volume because we don't have market makers. If you don't know what market makers are, they're just essentially, someone trading with themselves or their partner all day long to make it look like there's lots of volume. So it attracts people like you. And then I would say we don't worry about that right now. Maybe we'll worry about that later on as a community. Who knows? Because it's not really going to help anybody accumulate a nice little bag or anything like that. It's just going to make it a barrier for someone at the end of the day. So market cap's not as important to us right now. I mean, we would love for the market cap to be higher, but at the end of the day, The price is roughly between 3 to 7 Satoshis for the last 6-7 months. It's probably going to stay around that price for a little longer, who knows? But the market cap has gone up like 100,000 in that time, right? So I don't think people need to worry about specifically the coin price. They just kind of watch the general project trajectory, and then they'll get a good feel for what's going on. Again, we're in Discord all the time. We do have a Telegram. We have a Mattermost as well that we like to use, so we're a little bit more private oriented if we were going that direction. And then on Twitter, we're on Twitter. Most of us are on Twitter. John Spock, Proteus with some weird numbers and stuff in there, and and then decentralized. So if you guys want to chat with us about that, and you're not in Discord, feel free to tweet at us or something. And then DeVault Crypto is our Twitter handle. So yeah, come ask questions. The website's pretty informative. We're got a lot of stuff going on. I know we talked about a lot of stuff here, but there's a lot more we could talk about going forward. Tokens and all this kind of stuff we want to add. So yeah, there's too much to cover here today. But we got some smart developers here, as you guys have seen today, and I appreciate Seth for putting us on the show.
Yeah, no, guys, my pleasure, definitely. We'll have all the links that you mentioned before to social media, Discord, Telegram, and the Mattermost, which again is pretty cool. I mean, we're here using Jitsi because Zoom is insecure, so less secure.
True.
So
I like it.
Every little measure matters, right? Every little step towards privacy and anonymity matters. But I have to ask a question, and it's public for the record. Obviously, I've been thrown under the bus by some projects. They're just joking. But I asked the question publicly because this is a signal both to my audience and to other developers, free and open source software developers, not just cryptocurrency, but any FOSS developer. Did I ask for or receive a bounty for arranging this interview?
No, I asked you, and I said, hey, can I come on and talk about the show? Or can I come on the show and talk about DeVault? That was that. You said yes.
Cool.
Pretty easy,
and
right?
Did I give you guys a list of questions in advance?
No.
Nope.
No.
You just told us the subject matter.
Yeah. To your
Privacy.
credit, you guys came on site
Privacy and
unseen.
mining. Was that what you said? Privacy and mining or something like that?
Pretty much.
But yeah, I appreciate it, man. Like, we don't really get a lot of people to let us talk. We don't get a lot to talk about stuff because everyone wants to talk to Jeff Bezos, basically. So, they can go run and chase down Jeff Bezos. Well, we just want to talk crypto,
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it, guys. You guys have been super cool about just talking about like everything related to it. To your point, the Jeff Bezos is of the cryptosphere too. Like, jokes on you. They don't really care about your coin after the bounty is spent. Yeah, they don't care. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for making
thanks a lot, Seth. Yes, I used to watch your mining videos for a while between coins. I was thinking of doing FPGA mining and stuff, so I enjoyed those, and it's good to talk with you.
Hey, thank you. I was thinking about FPGA mining too until Bitware asked for their test units back. Womp womp. Well, guys, I appreciate it again.